Hey guys, Brockshield here. Back with you with the next video in our series, Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. Without further ado, returning to Great Expectations. I had begun as to be always decorating the chambers in some quite unnecessary and inappropriate way or other, and very expensive those wrestles with Barnard proved to be. By this time, the rooms were vastly different from what I had found them, and I enjoyed the honor of occupying a few prominent pages in the books of a neighboring upholsterer. I had got on so fast of late that I had even started a boy in boots, top boots, in bondage and slavery, to whom I might have been said to pass my days. For, after I had made the monster, out of the refuse of my washerwoman's family, and had clothed him with a blue coat, canary waistcoat, white cravat, creamy breeches, and the boots already mentioned, I had to find him a little to do and a great deal to eat, and with both of those horrible requirements he haunted my existence. This avenging phantom was ordered to be on duty at 8 on Tuesday morning in the hall. It was 2 feet square, as charged for 4 cloth, and Herbert suggested certain things for breakfast that he thought Joe would like, while I certainly felt obliged to him for being so interested and considerate. I had I had an odd half-hour provoked sense of suspicion upon me that if Joe had been coming to see him, he wouldn't have been quite so brisk about it. However, I came into town on the Monday night to be ready for Joe, and I got up early in the morning and caused the sitting room and breakfast table to assume their most splendid appearance. Unfortunately, the morning was drizzly, and an angel could not have concealed the fact that Barnard was shedding sooty tears outside the window, like some weak giant of a sweep. As the time approached, I should have liked to run away, but the avenger pursuant to orders was in the hall, and presently I heard Joe on the staircase. I knew it was Joe, by his clumsy manner of coming upstairs, his state books being always too big for him, and by the time it took him to read the names on the other floors, in the course of his ascent, when at last he stepped outside our door. I could hear his finger tracing over the painted letters of my name, and I afterwards distinctly heard him breathing in at the keyhole. Finally, he gave a faint single rap, and Pepper, such was the compromising name of the avenging boy, announced, "Mr. Gargery." I thought he never would have done wiping his feet, and that I must have gone out to lift him off the mat. But at last he came in. "Joe! How are you, Joe?" "Pip! How are you, Pip?" With his good, honest face all glowing and shining, and his hat put down on the floor between us, he caught both my hands and worked them straight up and down, as if I had been the last patented pump. "I'm glad to see you, Joe. Give me your hat." But Joe, taking it up carefully with both hands, like a bird's nest with eggs in it, wouldn't hear of parting with that piece of property, and persisted in standing talking over it in a most uncomfortable way. "Which you have that growed," said Joe, "and that swelled, and that gentle folked." Joe considered a little before he discovered this word. "As to be sure you are a honour to your king and country. And you, Joe, look wonderfully well." "Thank God," said Joe. "I'm ekkerval to most, and your sister, she's no worse than she were. And Biddy, she's ever right and ready, and all friends is no back'arder, if not no for'arder, 'ceptin' Wopsle, he's had a drop." All this time, still with both hands taking great care of the bird's nest, Joe was rolling his eyes round and round the room, and round the flowered pattern of my dressing gown. "Had a drop, Joe?" "Why, yes," said Joe, lowering his voice. "He's left the church, and went into play acting, which the play acting have likewise brought him to London along with me. And his wish were," said Joe, getting the bird's nest under his left arm for the moment and groping in it for an egg with his right, "if no offence, as I would, and you that." I took what Joe gave me and found it to be the crumpled playbill of a small metropolitan theatre. announcing the first appearance in that very week of the celebrated provincial amateur of Roscian renown, whose unique performance in the highest tragic walk of our national bard has lately occasioned so great a sensation in local dramatic circles. Were you at his performance, Joe? I inquired. I were, said Joe, with emphasis and solemnity. Was there a great sensation? Why, said Joe, yes, there certainly were a peck of orange peel, particular when he see the ghost. Though I put it to yourself, sir, whether it were calculated to keep a man up to work with a good heart, to be continually cutting in betwixt and the ghost with Amen. A man may have had a misfortune and be in the church, said Joe, lowering his voice to an argumentative and feeling tone, but that is no reason why you should put him out at such a time. Which I mean to say, if the ghost of a man's own father cannot be allowed to claim his attention, what can, sir? Still more, when his mourning at is unfortunately made so small as that the weight of the black feathers brings it off, trying to keep it on how you may. A ghost seeing effect in Joe's countenance informed me that Herbert had entered the room, so I presented Joe to Herbert, who held out his hand, but Joe backed from it and held on by the bird's nest. Your servant, sir, said Joe, which I hope as you and Pip. Here his eye fell on the Avenger, who was putting some toast on the table, and so plainly denoted an intention to make that young gentleman one of the family, that I frowned it down and confused him more. I mean to say, you two gentlemen, which I hope as you get your healths in this close spot, for this present may be a very good inn, according to London opinions, said Joe, confidentially, and I believe its character do stand I, but I wouldn't keep a pig in it myself, not in the case that I wished him to fat and wholesome, and to eat with a mellow flavour on him. Having borne this flattering testimony to the merits of our dwelling place, and having incidentally shown this tendency to call me sir, Joe, being invited to sit down to table, looked all around the room for a suitable spot on which to deposit his hat, as if it were only some very few rare substances in nature that it could find a resting place, and ultimately stood it over on an extreme corner of the chimney-piece, from which it ever afterwards fell off at intervals. Do you take tea or coffee, Mr. Gargery? Asked Herbert, who always presided over morning. Thank'ee, sir, said Joe, stiff from head to foot. I'll take whichever is most agreeable to yourself. What do you say to coffee? Thank'ee, sir, returned Joe, evidently dispirited by the proposal. Since you are so kind to make choice of coffee, I will not return contrary to your opinions. I will not run contrary to your opinions. But don't you never find it a little eating? Say tea, then, said Herbert, pouring it out. Here Joe's hat tumbled off the mantelpiece, and he started out of his chair and picked it up, and fitted it to the same exact spot, as if it were an absolute point of good breeding that it should tumble off again soon. When did you come to town, Mr. Garger? Were it yesterday afternoon, said Joe, after coughing behind his hand, as if he had time to catch the whooping cough since he came. No, it were not. Yes, it were. Yes, it were yesterday afternoon. With an appearance of mingled wisdom, relief, and strict impartiality. Have you seen anything of London yet? Why, yes, sir, said Joe. Me and Wopsle went straight to look at the Blacking Wares, but we didn't find that it come up to its likeness in the red bills at the shop doors, which I mean to say, added Joe, in an explanatory manner, as it is drawed to architecturaloreal. I really believe Joe would have prolonged this word, mightily expressive to my mind of some architecture that I know, into a perfect chorus, but for his attention being providentially attracted by his hat, which was toppling. We'll go ahead and stop there for this week. As usual, I want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe, as it greatly helps the channel. Light be with you all. Take care, and thanks again.